Thanks, Chair. Is the ANAO familiar with the issue of Treasury's $2.3 billion of unauthorised payments?
Carla Jago, Group Executive Director, Financial Statement Audit Services Group. Yes, we are.
Great. How did you first become aware of this issue?
Through our financial statement audit of the Department of Treasury's 24-25 financial statements.
Right. So was it ANAO that identified this issue, or did Treasury identify this issue and bring it to your attention?
I would have to take that on notice. I believe Treasury identified it and brought it to our attention.
While you were doing an audit?
Correct.
Right. Just for those watching at home not familiar with the process, what's involved in you auditing payments like this at a department like Treasury?
We initially gain an understanding of the process that an entity goes through, so not on individual payments but at a system level, the type of process that an entity would go through. We would test the controls that are in place. That may be done on a sample basis, depending on the type of payments or whether an IT system is involved. From that, if it's a sample we've selected, we will test the key controls and identify any issues with that, and if there are issues that mean we can't rely on the controls that are in place, we then turn to what we call substantive testing, where we actually look at the individual transactions in more detail. In this instance, do you know what happened? I don't have that detail on me.
Is there anyone in the room who's more familiar with the detail?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. I'd be grateful if you could provide as much detail on notice as possible, because it is important to understand how this issue was identified as part of the audit. When it was identified in the audit, had the retrospective written authorisation already been put in place?
I believe so.
Right. So Treasury obviously knew prior to the audit that these payments had been made without ministerial authorisation.
I'd have to take on notice the actual dates. Our audit actually runs for quite some period of time. We generally do the planning process for an audit of a department like Treasury in about November or December of the financial year, and then we do interim phases, pre-final phases, and then a final phase in about August each year. So it does spread over quite some period of time.
Okay, timeline in this instance would be really helpful, because it is important to understand if it is the case that as you became aware of this issue during the audit, the retrospective written authorisation was already in place, then that implies that prior to potentially the commencement of the audit, or at least this stage of the audit, Treasury was aware and had made some attempt to rectify the issue. Does that make sense?
Yes, I can get you that information on notice.
And they hadn't contacted you to tell you that they'd taken these steps?
I would have to check that. I don't know.
Okay. How would you characterise payments of this volume being made without ministerial authorisation?
I guess we expect that all payments are made in accordance with the law. Steps were taken in this instance when the issue was identified to rectify that, so that they were retrospectively authorised.
But prior to those steps being taken, these payments were unlawful, weren't they?
Our understanding is that they were in breach of Section 83 of the Constitution before they were retrospectively authorised.
Yeah. I mean, is it a serious thing in the ANAO's view that a department is making unlawful payments to the tune of $2.3 billion?
I think we see any potential breach of Section 83 of the Constitution as a serious matter.
Is there a difference between a technical breach or a serious breach of the law?
I'm not sure what a technical breach versus a serious breach.
No, nor am I. That's why I'm asking.
Roni Miller, Deputy Auditor General. You'd appreciate, Senator, we're very black and white people. A breach is a breach.
You should be, and I agree with you. A breach is a breach. An unlawful payment of any money is a worry, but particularly when it's $2.3 billion.
So you would be aware that hopefully in December we would normally table a summary of all financial statements results, and we do include in that summary what we call L findings or breaches, and there will be some. This one, in the evidence Ms Jago's given, sounds like it was rectified and wouldn't be reported as a breach because it was rectified. But certainly, as we're auditing, when we see legislative breaches, we report on those to the Parliament at the end of the calendar year.
Again, for those watching from home, why is it important that public money is spent consistent with Section 83 of the Constitution?
So Section 83 of the Constitution sets out that money can only be spent from the Consolidated Revenue Fund with a valid appropriation. So it is the fundamental principle, I guess, that underlies payment of public monies.
Why do we not allow departments and agencies to spend money without an appropriation?
The appropriation is what gives them the legal authority to make those payments, and in accordance with whatever the money has been appropriated for by the Parliament.
As you say, a pretty fundamental feature of our system of government that public money is only spent with the authority of the Parliament.
Correct.
Yes. What's best practice when a department or agency encounters issues like this? How should they handle it?
So seek to understand how it happened, look to rectify it if they can, and disclose the breach, which in this case I understand the Department of Treasury has included that information in its audited financial statements.
How and where is disclosure appropriate in an instance like this?
Apologies, Senator, can you just repeat that?
Who should Treasury disclose to?
I would expect they would normally disclose to their accountable authority and to their minister.
Yep.
And have a conversation with their auditors generally.
Which is you?
Yes.
Yep. And again, we'll be interested in what information you're able to provide on notice about when and how they did disclose it to you. Is this an error that you're aware of that's been made previously by departments and agencies? Is it a common issue?
There are a number of agencies that do make payments in breach of Section 83 of the Constitution each year, and they disclose that in their financial statements.
Any to the tune of $2.3 billion?
I would have to check, but I cannot recall any of that size in the past year.
No, I'm not aware of any even close to that size. But correct me on notice if you like if I'm wrong about that. What are the kind of controls that should be in place to prevent any department or agency doing this? What are best practice controls to prevent this?
I think just a fundamental first step of checking that there is an available appropriation and that appropriate authorisations have been obtained before the payment leaves the Commonwealth.
Payment of money is not an unusual thing for Treasury to do. It's kind of core business for Treasury. Are you surprised that an error like this happened at a central agency like Treasury that's really well versed in how to pay money?
I don't think I thought about whether I was surprised. It can happen in some entities through a lapse of people either checking that the authorisation was in place. So I can't say whether I was surprised or not, though.
Do you expect departments and agencies to have more robust controls in place when there's a greater amount of money involved, or are the controls standard no matter how much money is being spent?
The controls do vary between entities and depending on the type of payment program in place and how much risk there is that they've assessed in that particular type of payment.
How do you assess risk on something like this?
It's probably a question for Treasury as to how they assessed risk in this circumstance. The types of things that you would usually take into consideration in assessing risk is the likelihood of potential fraud or misappropriation, whether you're relying on voluntary disclosure by others as to whether they are eligible for the payment or how much of it they are eligible for, or whether it's a standard amount that everyone is entitled to. So you'll take those types of things into account. Does
ANO audit risk management?
We can do performance audits where we may look at risk management in particular entities or on particular programs.
And have you done a risk audit of Treasury lately?
I do not believe we have in recent times, no.
No. Is it worth considering doing one given this error?
We certainly have in contemplation some federal financing arrangements. A lot of payments get made out of Treasury for a variety of purposes on the advice of portfolios, and We're certainly looking at whether there's something in there to audit. I think we've got it in our forward work program. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking at my colleagues in case they want to ask the next round of questions. I will.
Senator Sharma.